Well, very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for joining this session hosted by the NPCC. We are going to listen to our guest speaker, Ketan Varia, in a few minutes, and kindly note that your microphones are muted for a smooth broadcast, and my colleague Shani Mataven will invite you to ask questions in the chat box. So you can use the chat box. The icon is at the bottom of the screen for those who still don't know where it is, and you can post your questions or your remarks or your comments. So our distinguished speaker is Ketan Varia. A warm welcome to you, Ketan. You are the founder of Kinetic Solutions based in UK. You have a wide experience in management and consulting for public and private companies. You are also the author of the book, The Art of Transformational Change. And some of us have had the opportunity to learn from your experience when you conducted training in Mauritius a few years back. And today you will tell us more about a tool, a very important tool to prioritize and stay focused, especially when hard and difficult decisions have to be taken, as it is the case for several companies for the time being. So, dear participants, let me introduce first of all the Executive Director of the NPCC, Mr. Ashit Kumar Ganga, well-known personality as he was formerly the Minister of Industry and Commerce and Executive Director of the NPCC since January this year. Mr. Ashit Ganga, I invite you to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Françoise. It is indeed with much pleasure that I welcome all the participants to this webinar on using a prioritization grid to discover more opportunities for your business that will be conducted by Mr. Ketan Varia from UK. Ketan, please accept my deepest thanks for hosting this webinar for us during this crisis period. In fact, Dave told me a lot about you and the insightful training that you conducted on change management for the NPCC some time back. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus rightly pointed out that change is the only constant in life. When a saying has been alive for centuries, it is but natural to recognize its truth, and there is no better instance than this pandemic situation to illustrate this fact. You will agree that the coronavirus has brought a big shift in our way of life. Even when lockdown restrictions are completely eased, the virus will continue to affect the lives of different people in different ways. But it is to be noted that whatever change we experience in life and how we embrace that change will forever impact the way we will live with the change. Prioritizing what we do is therefore a crucial skill, given that priorities often change in response to changing environment and many other factors, more so as resources are almost always scarce. I'm sure many of you have read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Back in 1989, Stephen talks about a prioritization technique to divide tasks into 4 categories as follows. First category, important and urgent. Second category, important and not urgent. Third category, not important and urgent. And fourth category, neither important nor urgent. And he proposed to focus on first category, followed by the second, the third, and the fourth. And today we will have the opportunity to learn from Ketan how to use a project prioritization grid to help us streamline the process of choosing projects. The strength of such a grid is that it assists to make an informed choice rather than arbitrarily choosing which project to start with. In this time of uncertainty, it is more than ever important to make use of a more efficient way of selecting projects that teams must effectively implement. The prioritization grid can therefore be a solid foundation, which, together with other tools, will enable us to restart our businesses and create the necessary value to come out of this crisis fast. Thank you again, Ketan. I look forward to continue this collaboration with Kinetic Solutions Limited in the near future. And now I have the pleasure to pass on to you for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gunga. That was a fantastic introduction to the presentation. In fact, very apt. We're actually going to use almost 70% of some of the things you discussed in this presentation. So what you've said is absolutely timely. So for everybody out there, I'm going to start with this picture. And what I'd like you to do on chat is to say, what does this picture tell you? Have a look at this picture. What does it tell you?
We have everyone is not safe. Here is one who destroys the whole team. A crow is trying to cut the tree. One person can make a big change. This is what one of the attendees is seeing. Change resists, says Bernard. Ashvin says one bird will decide the fate of all others. We have somebody who says that it's business step from beginning to success. Suraj thinks that we are never safe in our comfort zone.
Great, thank you, thank you. So I think it's all of those things really. So this bird here is a woodpecker. I don't know if there's woodpeckers in Mauritius, but quite common, as you know, in the Northern Hemisphere. And as we can see, when it comes to an organization or your organization or community, you have different people who perceive reality in different ways. Now, the bird at the top is very comfortable. Nothing seems to be going wrong. Nothing has gone wrong for a while. There are other birds who are looking down thinking something's not right here. But actually, in terms of change, nothing much is changing to the whole tree. But if this community of birds doesn't do anything about the reality, which is this woodpecker cutting the tree, then it's going to be a disaster for all of them. And really, this is a metaphor, I guess. I mean, this picture was done a long time ago, maybe about a couple of years ago, but it's a metaphor for what's happened in a way with COVID. COVID has really taken that tree down and asked us to really examine what is the reality out there, what kind of crows or woodpeckers might be out there that could make such a devastating effect on our business environment and our communities. So, as Ashit rightly said, Stephen Covey, great book. If people haven't read it, I'm sure many of you have. And just actually on this book itself, you know, when you read this book, it must be about 25 years old, and you read it today, and it still seems very relevant. And when you read a book like that, then you know that it's stood the test of time. But Covey absolutely said that most of us spend too much time on what is urgent and not enough time on what is important. And because we don't spend enough time on what is important, then we have that situation of maybe the ground beneath us being taken away, and that metaphor can mean a new competitor comes and takes away all the work that we've been doing, or what we're doing is no longer required by the customer because they've found a better way, or it is that our staff and our people want to work in a different way and something that we hadn't thought about, and we find it hard to get the resources that we need. So one of the things when we're looking at prioritization is to ask yourself some questions. And what I'm going to ask you to do while I go through these questions is two things. First of all, if it's okay with you, just to state the kind of industry you're from. Are you from the tourist industry? Are you a financial sector business? What industry are you from? That would be really useful. And the second thing, as I go through these questions, in your own mind, try and answer these yourself. And if there's something you want to share in terms of the answers, just put it on the chat. We'll read those out. But something I want you to do is, because I want to make this 1 hour session as interactive as possible. So the first thing, when you're looking at opportunities for change, right? So this is where you're looking at what's really important rather than what's urgent. Is one of the questions you might ask is, well, actually, who might you partner with to create new products and services? Is there somebody that where the 1 + 1 becomes a 3? And we know that, for example, in the UK, all our takeaway services are now partnered up with delivery services. And that partnership has created a massive boom in people ordering food to be delivered at home, right? And that was a simple partnership that's been very effective. So who might you partner with to create new products and services? The other thing is, what could benefit your customers if only you could show them? Now, it may be that there is something you do which is extraordinarily good, but customers just don't recognize it or don't see it because they have put a label on you about some existing service you're offering. If only they could see. I mean, a good example here is Amazon. I mean, look at Amazon is, we always considered that in the past to be a business that delivers, goods. Mainly it started with books, but obviously now a whole host of other things that we may want to buy. But really, Amazon makes all its money from its hosting, from its cloud hosting. And now that it's really shown corporate customers, small customers, how this could benefit them, then this is the part of the business that's really making money for them because it's really made sure that it has sold that part of its service to its customers. The third question is, what could you do around technology that could fundamentally change your business? And this is really thinking about what exists right now that could completely modify the way you work your business. So we will have come across many examples of this right now, from being able to deliver services virtually. One really interesting thing in the UK, which I think you'd find really interesting, this kind of ties up with number 6, is that right now we are, because of the lockdown in the UK, if anybody wants to buy a house, it's very hard to go to a house and have a look because of COVID-19. So what estate agents have offered is the first visit is now virtual. So if you want to visit a house to buy it or rent it, you actually get a virtual visit done by the estate agent who will go on his or her own, show you the whole property without you having to leave your home. And that has fundamentally changed the nature of that business, which has always been about trying to get people to go and visit somewhere, to say, well, actually you can do that first stage much quicker and much better, which then increases the opportunity to get the deal done and get things moving. The fourth thing is, what things are taking up your time and attention, but make no fundamental difference to your business? So what is it around administration? What is it around asset management? What is it around maintenance even, that take up so much time and energy, but actually means you don't focus on what really matters, which is your customer, your business process, your suppliers, and creating value. And spending time on that and thinking how to eliminate that can become very powerful. So for example, particularly with small businesses, there are now a whole host of people who offer accounting packages which are on the cloud, and that has saved heaps of time in trying to manage the numbers. I mean, for ourselves, we're being a small boutique organization, that's exactly what we've done. And we really shared maybe 1 or 2 days of work quite easily in terms of our back office processes. The fifth thing is, what are you good at in terms of skills that is not well known yet? So it may be that in your organization, you have people who are skilled in something that is latent, that's quite hidden. And if that can be brought out and delivered, created as a service, then that can be fundamentally a strength to your business. A good example, I'll use my own example. About 17, 18 years ago, I'm a chartered engineer by background, so I did a degree in engineering. I was working with a client in the defense sector, and we were doing some assessment of their projects, and there was a lot of tension in that client between two senior people, and I started to just tease out some of these differences and some of the underlying root causes of why these differences existed, to try and find a way forward. And actually, after that meeting, my boss at the time came and spoke to me and said to me, "I'll be honest with you, you're a much better facilitator than you are an engineer." And that really hit me. And I thought, wow, I've done all this degree course in engineering, but actually what I'm being valued here for is my facilitation skills. And then obviously in time, that is now taken over in terms of the work I deliver. So there are these latent skills that exist that we can bring out, and that itself can develop a new product or service. Number 6, we already spoke about how can you add a virtual element in your service. I don't think I need to tell you much more about that. It is happening right now. Almost it's been forced upon us because of COVID-19. Number 7, how can you work across geographies? Mauritius is near the equator, it's in Africa, but that's really irrelevant in terms of products and services that you may have. It doesn't matter where you are, you can really deliver globally and worldwide. A good example here is that I know Mauritius has got some very, very, very good universities. And I don't know so much about some of the courses they teach, but I do know, for example, that in the Netherlands, there's a university which is made up of a lot of people who have been teaching at Harvard, who are now teaching in this university in the Netherlands, and they're now offering an MBA course, a virtual MBA course, which is as good as Harvard's, but at a much reduced price. So, for example, with Mauritius and some of the great education you have, why does it only have to be confined to the island of Mauritius, or maybe with Africa? Why can't it be done globally? Because really what people are now valuing is the value add, not necessarily where that organization is at. So I'm going to pause there. Shalini, I don't know if you want to just pick up any thoughts, any questions, any ideas from the chat. And while we're doing that, I would also like to know where people are from, what industries are from. I think we have about 60 people there, so it'd be great to know what kind of industries they're from.
So Ketan, we have people in training, in IT consulting, we have from medical cabinet, optometrists, tourist industry, cruise industry, facilities management.
Brilliant.
IT sector. Yeah, we have also people from the IT sector, Ketan.
Great, great. And would some people there like to volunteer some ideas in those 7 questions that they've come across, either for their own industry or for other industries? That would be really lovely to see what kind of thoughts they have around these questions. Or maybe I'm missing a question. Maybe you want to put out a question that I've missed.
So you already have questions about, do you agree that in terms of skills, which is not well known, how can we know and how will we develop it easily? I think it's more about skills development. So how to develop skills industry. It's more related to, do that person see that as an opportunity? It's Jairajitu, an opportunity for change. Maybe in terms of skills development, this is one opportunity. You have somebody, Georgina says she's in the training, consultation, services, coaching, and mentoring. Okay, Jairaj says yes. So skills development as an opportunity. This is one answer you've got.
Okay. Let me try and answer that. And at the same time, if other people have other thoughts, please just please do just put them on the chat.
Yes.
It's a very good question in terms of how do you discover those latent skills? 2 ways of doing this. I'll give you a very good example. When I was working, actually this was a large government organization in the UK. I remember we were trying to do some work around communications for a piece of project, and I found a person who their role wasn't in communications, and they weren't even that senior in the organization. But having talked to them, I found out something. I asked them, what do they do outside of work? And I found out this person runs, a football club for kids in outside of work. And actually, what he does is all about communication outside work. He had some innate communication skills that were very powerful, but they weren't seen at work because that wasn't the role he was doing. And therefore, on this piece of work, we said, well, actually, these skills you have, which you use all the time, in fact, managing children is probably the most difficult stakeholders. Why can't we utilize your skills here at work? And that person was open to it. So there may be people who use skills outside of their job, find out what those are and bring them in. The second thing is to ask people, what are they really passionate about? What do they really love doing? For some people, it may be they like drawing outside of work, or they like gardening, or they like art, or they like even problem solving, IT, they like IT, new IT systems. But all of these things are things that when you find out the passion, you can develop, because if someone is passionate, then you can take that passion and make them develop that skill. So I hope that's kind of answered that question. Any more thoughts?
Yes, Ketan, you answered very well, because somebody was saying, in fact, how do we know we have the skills? I think you answered it very well. We have also somebody talking about having entrepreneurs to cluster. It's Georgina, entrepreneurs to cluster and work together for survival. What do you think about this idea of entrepreneurs working in a cluster, sharing the knowledge, maybe the resources together?
I think the world, my view is the world is going more towards cooperation than competition. And this thing about who might you partner with to create new products and services is something that is really about collaboration. And actually, in some parts, in some bits, you may want to collaborate with your partner, with your competitor. For example, all the big grocery stores that exist, what was happening in the UK, what was happening, so we have things called Tesco, Sainsbury's, you've probably heard of them, Asda, is that a lot of the cartons that had the logo on them, once those cartons were products in them, the wrong cartons were being delivered to the wrong store in the back office. But it didn't really matter, because all that was happening is that the goods were being emptied from the carton, and the carton was thrown away because it didn't have the right supermarket logo on it. The supermarkets realized that the suppliers supplying to them, the same supply supplying to them, but getting it in the wrong box, it was a very simple solution. They all arranged to have a set fee to return those boxes back to the suppliers, which meant that there was a lot less environmental loss. The supplier benefited because it got those boxes back. So it's a great example of collaboration between very, very strong competitors in the supermarket industry. And that actually works right now, so it's a good example. So absolutely find out the things that you can collaborate on that don't destroy your business, and work on those. You don't have to collaborate on everything, because there's some know-how, some intelligence, some IP that you have, but the other areas, absolutely be open to that, and it might create win-win for you and the customer.
And Ketan, there is also somebody saying about as an opportunity, reskilling. Any views about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very simple answer, okay? And I think when I've been to Mauritius, I see this already in the people. And in fact, we have a lot of people from Mauritius in the UK as well. And I see this constant drive to develop, right? So that constant drive to develop automatically means reskilling. All of us have been forced to reskill using Zoom. Probably in 10 weeks ago, I didn't have a Zoom account. And about 6 weeks ago, I started training a huge amount of people on Zoom, so in 4 weeks, I had to just learn, Zoom very well. So, and also deliver things such as these. So absolutely, reskilling is a mantra. Developing yourself is a mantra. That must be a continuous and can never be stopped. Should never be stopped.
Maybe one last thing before you move on. I mean, it's interesting. Maybe you will cover it later as well. That somebody saying, okay, I want to change. I know what I want to do. I see an opportunity, for example, in the IT sector. But what factors should I analyze or ask myself before starting? Or maybe you will answer that later on in the presentation. But the question is, okay, people want to do things. They see the opportunity, but they still don't know where to start and how to start.
Yeah, this is a great example question. And I think particularly small businesses, there can be this confusion that, okay, I've got the idea, but how do I start? Where do I focus? The people I've spoken to say, yeah, this is a good thing, but the focus is difficult. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about, because when we look at these sort of these 7 questions, you might get 50 ideas, 30 ideas, but you need to distill those down into what's really important and what's going to add value. So that's something we're going to talk about in a second. But that question is not a new question. I hear it all the time.
I mean, I don't know if you want to answer it now or later. There's also a question from Jairaj where he's asking, says, he wants really to know when something is important and how do you know that it is important? How do you know it is urgent? So when something is important, is it urgent? Let's put it like that. When something is important, is it urgent?
Yeah, well, that's a simple answer to this, right? If you can all see the picture, at the moment, right? The tree hasn't fallen, right? So there's nothing urgent right now, but very soon this tree is going to fall. And that point becomes the urgent point. When this woodpecker just started pecking the tree, it was very important for us to try and solve this problem, but not urgent. Maybe it would have taken a few weeks of the woodpecker before the tree was down. The urgent bit is when you have to react. When the tree falls down, it became an urgency, right? When COVID hit us and we were all asked to go and self-isolate and stay at home, it became an urgency.
Maybe we'll ask the attendees today to continue posting your questions, and maybe Ketan, you can carry on.
Okay. The other question, I think this goes back to, I'm trying to remember who said it, but someone spoke about their IT idea and how to move that forward.
Yes.
So one of the things I'd say, sorry about this, one of the things I'd say is don't try and work on your ideas and on opportunities alone, right? Even though they may be clear in your mind, you've done your own research, really speak to people, speak to your stakeholders, speak to the potential customers first and ask them, is this something you may be willing to buy? What kind of price point might it be? What's missing in the service or the product? Speak to your suppliers. Your suppliers may be able to give you the product in a very different way that might suit your needs much better. Speak to your staff, of course. Look at research reports. Speak to your friends and family, which is something I know people will do quite a lot. And go and seek help from government organizations like NPCC. They may have some good practice, some good ideas. So when you are working those opportunities, try not to do it, those 7 questions and other questions you may have, try not to do it in isolation. Try and work with your stakeholders in developing these opportunities. You will find that what they say will embellish your ideas, will give them more shape and give them more focus. Of course, you don't want to speak to too many people who are very critical because you don't want to feel negative as well. But it's important to have somebody who might have a bit of criticism, but just sharing your ideas with others within that close knit of people you trust is very important to move things forward. And you'll see this when it comes to a whole host of new product innovations. Then this work around sharing the ideas and developing as pilot and prototypes becomes very significant. Particularly in IT, we see betas and prototypes being released all the time. with services. There are often services that are launched temporarily to see what the uptake is, what the demand is, and then there's lessons learned from that. So always good to speak to others, start thinking about how you might develop your service and test it with the same stakeholders early on. Okay, so there was a question about focus. At the moment, I'm going to talk more about an existing business rather than a brand new business, but you can apply this to a startup as well, but I think you just need to look at it in a different way. But in terms of an existing business, what you're trying to do with all those opportunities, and Ashik talked about important and urgent, is to then try and group all those ideas you have into what we call quick wins, things that give you immense benefit that you can implement and make the change within 2 weeks. A change project, something that might take a little bit longer, but also gives you benefit. And a strategic project, which is going to take a lot longer, needs a lot more thought and probably a lot more resource to make that change happen. Okay, so this is the prioritization grid. Now, if people haven't seen it before, then I'll go through this a little bit slowly. Many of you would have maybe come across this in your jobs or roles. So when you have those opportunities, so we had those 7 questions, what you are trying to think about is, where do those opportunities, you might have 20, 30, 40 opportunities that arise from the 7 questions or from other analysis. So where do these fit in terms of benefit to you or your customers, and how difficult is it to make the change happen? And you start putting these on a grid. So, and what we want to end up with is those things that are, easy to make change happen and create the maximum benefit to the customer, are those things that you want to do straight away. So, for example, during COVID, all the supermarkets very quickly started putting rationing in, to try and make sure that the customers got as much product fairly as possible. So we were only, for example, allowed to buy, 4 tins of tomatoes. So what that meant was that, there was maximum benefit to maximum amount of customers, but it was very easy for the supermarkets to implement because all they needed to do is make a small software change to allow that. The other things are change projects that offer high benefit, but take us slightly longer, about a month. And the last is that box on the right, or my right anyway, which is your strategic projects, which give you high benefit, but take a lot longer. And the interesting thing is, a lot of opportunities there haven't got a circle around them because they're difficult and give a low benefit. And actually, with those things, you don't want to think about them. You want to move away from them and not have them in your focus. The part of the problem with businesses is when they're trying to do many things at the same time, or many ideas, and they can't put some of them away for now, then they lose focus. So by having something small and small focus, in this, there's 3, 4, 5, 7 pieces of work. I would say that maybe that's too many. That gives you real focus to focus on those and not focus on those things which at the moment are too difficult or actually don't benefit the customer. And what this does, and then gives you prioritization. It's very easy for the quick wins to set up a small team and say, right, let's make these changes happen really rapidly. For your change projects, you can do a little bit more planning, but still have some focus and some aim to get the change happening within a month. And for your strategic projects, this is where if you're in a small business, you might need to invest money, you might need to get funding, you might need to go and get outside help to make these more projects happen. But those 3 things can occur at the same time.
I mean, just by looking at it like that, it looks a bit complicated. Maybe somebody will say, how will I know exactly where to place the different opportunities I identified to be sure that I placed it where it should be? Maybe you will explain it with an example later.
Yeah, it's a very, very good question, actually. If you're going to do this with your stakeholders, remember we talked about your stakeholders, your customers, your suppliers, friends and family, this grid doesn't have to be exact. You're not trying to place it exactly in the right position. You're trying to make sure things are relative between the other opportunities, right? So it's not about knowing exactly where it fits, it's the relative, how relative this opportunity is to the other opportunities. So then you can prioritize, okay? In this one, this one that is low and easy on the left-hand side, is not the highest priority. Go for this high and easy one on at the top, because that's going to give you maximum benefit. You would put all your focus into that to say, let's get this done in 2 weeks, because that is going to be amazing for your business, right? There is a question here around how sure can you be around the benefit, and that is a very good question. At some point, it's a judgment call that you're going to make. But if you speak to the right people, then you can get that more assurance about that benefit to your business. I think there's another question.
Yes, there's one question about a project seems to be difficult, and with time when we implement, we find that it is easier. So we can place the project in the wrong place at the beginning. So there's a change over time.
Correct.
So how
correct. Yeah. Yeah, good. Whoever said that, that's excellent. So absolutely right. A change project can become, when you start it, we actually, first of all, 2 things. You can find that it's actually much easier than you first thought, because maybe there's existing technology or an existing solution you can use, or even otherwise, you find that you can break the change project into small projects, and some of those small projects are much easier to implement. So what I would say on that is that is a discovery you'll make. Your prioritization grid should be fluid. It should not be fixed to say, let's do this, and then it stays there forever. It should be fluid. You should keep going back to it, and you should be open to change things on the prioritization grid as you discover new things. So, and in fact, technology can now help you do that, which is exactly what I'm going to talk about in a second. All right. So what I've got here is I don't expect you to read all this text, but this is one that was done for a consulting company. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and I'm going to show you something called Miro. While I'm doing that, M-I-R-O, it's a collaborative tool. Could I just have, I think we have about 60 people, could I just have anybody who's used this Miro tool just to say they've used it, because I'd love to know whether you've used it or not. We have some more responses. I'm really keen to know. Even if it's a no, please let me know so that I know whether this is something you guys have done.
So some no, some never seen it. So that's good.
All right. So and so this Miro tool, which has been there for a little while, is something that everybody can use. The basic version is at no charge, and this template is already given to you. Okay, and what you do is, if you're going to, for example, work with your customer, maybe a supplier, maybe a member of staff, and maybe you're not all together in the office, or even if you are all together in the office, rather than using a flip chart and pen and post-it notes, we can actually just do it directly together on this board. So we're going to use an example that I think, Francois, you're going to share with us about an SME and some opportunities that they are looking to develop. And we're going to complete this prioritization grid for them. Now, one thing as we do that is, if, for people who have not seen Miro, there's a share button here. So if you do use the tool and you play share, you can share the link with as many people as you want, and they can all update this prioritization grid at the same time as you. So you do it in real time, which is the most amazing thing about it. Okay, let's start with the 5 or a few of the opportunities for the SME. Do you want to give me some background?
Very interesting. So let's say I'm an SME, just taking from SMEs we've been meeting online during the confinement. So let's say I come and tell you, yeah. So let's say I tell you, okay, one of the opportunities I see is that I had to look for niche markets to sell my products.
Okay.
So I would true that, I don't know, my benefits are high if I find the niche market. But, oh, you're saying it's easy to implement, to find the niche market. Okay.
Well, first of all, what I would say, do you want to just give us some background to this SME, just what sector it's in roughly, broadly?
In the food sector, in fact, they manufacture some, I mean, they manufacture what we call the parathas here, parathas, which is very common in, yes. And, but during the confinement, they found out that they couldn't even sell because they couldn't go out. I mean, we are all stuck at home.
Yes.
And when we had a discussion with them, so the idea came, okay, maybe I should stop selling where I was selling and try to find other niche markets, because the difficulty was to access, for example, supermarkets.
Yes.
And now that he had to find other places, niche markets in terms of maybe where to sell it other than, for example, supermarkets.
Great, great. Okay, so we'll leave it there for a minute. And can I have another idea?
Yeah. Okay. What they found also as an opportunity, because they were having fresh parathas done. So they said maybe we need to move to a new offer of our products, like from fresh to frozen food. Let's say the parathas could be frozen and bought then by people, but not fresh parathas that they normally send to the market to sell. So move to a new offer of my products.
Okay, good.
I
So
think, yeah.
Before we go into any more, let's just look at these two. Look for niche market to sell the product. From your understanding of that company, what would be the benefit to the customer? Would it be quite high? Because I guess they will experience this paratha,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And what's the difficulty in implementing, do you think, for this organization?
I think it will be difficult because maybe that company doesn't sufficiently know the market.
Yeah.
And because of that, they would find it difficult to know where to go. So the question would be, where will I go? Okay, I want to change my market, my segment, but then I don't know where I can sell it because I don't have this overview. I don't know which market is better for me.
Okay, so it looks like maybe high benefit once they find that market, but it's going to be difficult to find that market.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And then selling the products as frozen, not fresh, so then the customer can store it in the freezer and cook later.
Exactly.
What is the benefit to the customer compared to this one? Would you say it's about the same? And I guess these are customers in Mauritius, right? For now.
Yeah.
Okay. So would you say the benefit is?
I mean, in Mauritius, I think during the confinement, we all become expert in doing parathas.
Yes.
But again, there are some like me. I would be looking for the frozen one because I know I won't be able to have the fresh one.
Yes.
So for benefit for me, if I have it, maybe the taste will be different, but the benefit will be high.
Yeah.
And how to do it, maybe I don't have the knowledge how to, as an SME, how to make it, how to freeze it. I don't have maybe the skills or the knowledge, or the people working for me just do fresh parathas every day, so they don't know how to make it, to have it frozen, so that it stays, quality is good and things like that.
Correct. But I would then also say for the SME, maybe they don't have the skill, but people are freezing products everywhere. So it's not like that skill doesn't exist. Yeah, it already exists. So maybe it's not so difficult. Maybe not so difficult to implement, I would say. Would you agree? It's a matter of finding out how to.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
All right. Let's take that idea.
Yeah. Okay, another one, maybe the confinement, it was very difficult, or even when we had to start the business again, it was very, very difficult for me to have access to my raw materials that I needed. So I just realized that an opportunity is not only to tap on one supplier, because if that supplier cannot supply me, so I have a problem. So maybe to look for other suppliers. and maybe at a cheaper price, so reducing my production costs.
Good. Okay, and I'll just say, and for cost reduction.
Yeah, exactly.
What you're doing with multiple suppliers is reducing your cost. Just as an aside, in Britain, you guys may have heard we ran out of toilet rolls, we ran out of bread, ran out of tomato tins early on. In Italy, that didn't happen. They didn't run out of anything. And the reason is that the Italian market is very much built on multiple suppliers serving the small shop or the grocery. In Britain, it's one single supply chain dependent on one supplier all the way through, you know. And that's one of the reasons we had a real issue with supermarkets early on. So I think this solution applies to large companies as well as small. So where would we put this relative to everything? How difficult is this to?
It's easy, yeah. I think, yeah, it's
okay.
It's
and what's the benefit
easy,
to them?
yeah. The benefits also will be high, yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, let's take the fourth one.
Right. Okay, maybe now I see that it's again, I cannot access the supermarkets, or I'm finding difficulty to find other markets. So I know now it's the trend and everybody's talking about going online. So I want to exploit other distribution channels. I want, for example, to sell online.
And maybe we have online and partnerships. Yes, could come in here
yes.
as well. We, for example, we actually have a shop that sells all sorts of Indian products actually, but it sells it at its shop, but it also, you find the same product at all the different supermarkets as well. So it tries to focus on both markets, its own shop and others. And where would we put this in terms of finding this difficulty and benefit?
I think definitely the benefits will be high, but maybe difficult to implement if, again, I find it difficult. I don't know how to go online, or to, for example, even to use Facebook or social media or website or things like that. So difficult to implement, but benefit to my customer.
Higher than this? Yeah.
High, yes.
Okay. All right. And you had one more example?
And one more maybe about my providing new skills to my employees, taking it on the human side. Okay, if, for example, if I'm doing frozen, or I don't know, I have to use, but maybe something else or I don't know, I do stuffed parathas instead of having plain parathas. I don't know, something else in the way of my products. So I have to provide new skills to my employees. So maybe one of the opportunity, and at the same time to retain them, because they are trained to do something else, or maybe I can diversify my product as well.
Good, good. So basically creating new products by training employees, right?
Yes.
Okay. And where would we put this?
Benefits again high, and implementation also is easy, yeah.
Okay. So I've done a rough grid. Is there anything you want to move? And now you see this. Is there anything in the wrong place? I'm just going to move everything down a little bit so that it's all still relative to each other.
Maybe one question, is it okay if I don't fill in all the 4 quadrants? Yes.
Yeah, but remember, actually, what happens generally is everybody puts everything in the top quadrant, okay? Because, they feel it's a great benefit, but remember this grid is a relative grid,
Yeah.
So actually, if this whole grid is filled up, then I'll shift everything down anyway, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Because it's a relative grid. The benefit is a relative, low and high is relative to each other rather than necessarily directly in themselves. So is there anything you'd like me to move here? Is it about right, roughly, from what we know?
Yeah, roughly, yeah, I think that's okay.
So we'll finish there, but what's come out is that really the quick wins for this organization is to really seek these multiple suppliers to manage risks. And then actually it's got its employees. It's a matter of just leveraging them, maybe changing a few bit of training and starting to do a whole host of different products, you know, and that could really be a good quick win for them, something they can be able to do in maybe 2 or 3 weeks, you know, or even earlier. So I hope this kind of what we've done here is it shows how we can give focus. And these last two, other distribution channel and then looking for niche markets, is something more of a longer term project, still important, but maybe has to be broken down and maybe needs a lot more effort, or maybe some support. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing here. But one thing I'd say is this grid is, I think as the point was made, is a flexible grid. When you come back a week later, you might decide this actually is here after having done some further work, right? So it's completely okay to move things around as you develop. All right, I'm just going to share my screen one more time, and then we'll be finished. So we talked about this. So just to summarize.
But then how long what is the time frame, for example, yeah.
So I heard a question.
And what is the time frame, for example, to move or to change opportunities, to change the places? I mean, is there a specific time frame? It should be every, I don't know, if I start this exercise, for how long will I, for example, say, I will review them. I will go through them again and review them, or change the places. Is there a time frame to be used when we do it, or is it like, for example, when you do strategy? Just to think about that, when you put in place a strategy for your organization, you have very often to review your strategy because there are changes around you. So what about this tool, and how often do you have to review it?
I would say for any organization, this is something they should be reviewing continuously, okay? But in terms of the drumbeat, they might look at it once a month, once every 2 months, once every 2 weeks. It's going to be very much dependent on the nature of the organization, but it's something that they want to continuously review. This should be part of, because really, this organization is doing two things. It's delivering work and it's improving the work, right? That's the only thing it does. This is all part of the improvement of work. So it's something that it should be doing on a drumbeat as part of its normal review of the business that it does on a normal basis.
Okay.
To summarize, prioritization, which is what we've learned, is a way of getting focus on opportunities. And in light of COVID-19, and in fact, what's been mentioned, is even more important to do this piece of work because things have changed in a large way for all of us around the world. Develop, make sure you work with your key stakeholders to develop those opportunities to get a more rounded view. And the main thing I'd say is that this is a very good way of getting these quick wins that can be rolled out rapidly to benefit your business. This tool isn't there just to have a discussion and to come up with more strategy. It's a way to actually making things happen, making action happen. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing in a second and take any questions. This is a little bit about Kinetic and what we do. So, we help on strategy for change. We help organizations with digital processes. We help with creating this continuous improvement and innovation mindset within organizations. And last but not least, we are expert in facilitating others in making good decisions using the power of technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Ketan. So we have a question from Michael, who's asking, while the economic turmoil is likely to continue, some products and services and trade alliances are here to stay. How do we adapt and survive?
Well, my question is, there is no choice. You're going to have to adapt to survive, So it's all about really not being driven by the fear of change, but just accepting what's happened and adapting to the new normal.
Okay. But then there's another question from Akhilesh saying, does quick win ensure survival?
Well, let's look at your example of that food company being able to create a new product by reskilling their staff. If it did that and managed to release some new products, then absolutely, it's now got a new revenue stream, and it does mean it does create an opportunity for some survival, absolutely, because it has a new source of income. Ourselves at Kinetic, we've started doing virtual training on creativity. We started that in March, and with everything stopping with our consulting work, that was our only source of revenue to start with in March. But at least it kept our business going. The reality is, yes, those quick wins can help you in an immense way to keep the business continuing as a going concern.
Yeah, a very interesting question from Andrew, who says that the priority grid has to cater for risk as well. So how does that tool accommodate, or how do you map the risk in this priority grid?
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. There are other factors here that we haven't looked at. So actually, when it comes to more complex ideas, then risk is definitely one of them. Also the benefit, we've just looked at very broad terms in terms of the benefit, but we need to think about benefit in terms of, there are a whole host of benefits, from cost reduction to revenue enhancements to cost avoidance. So there is another layer you can add on to this if you wish. And that's something you may wish to do depending on your organization. Okay.
There's also one question from somebody who is in the hospitality sector. And as you know, for Mauritius, this sector has been hit, directly by the COVID-19. But that person is also in the training for the hospitality sector. So the question, I don't know if you have the answer, but that person is asking, where should I move now? I cannot stay in the hospitality sector. I cannot be maybe a trainer in hospitality. We will become consultant like you. But the question is, where do I go from there? I can't stay in that sector.
Yeah. Very, very, very good question. It's a very good question. A lot of us ask ourselves, right, when we're thinking about career move or a change of direction. I would say to that person, what is it? Two things, right? What is it that you really enjoy doing, you're really passionate about, okay? And the second thing is, what are you really good at that other people are not aware of? Those two questions become very important questions. So you might have read in the news, or you can even Google this if you want, that one of the British Airways stewards, he's been asked to go on, been asked to take furlough, which is paid leave, because obviously there are very few flights flying. And he thought about this, and he thought about what he was doing in terms of what he was doing with the customers on a plane. He was offering them a service, he was taking care of their safety, and he was making sure that they were okay. And that person's now went and joined a care home company, offering care services in a care home, because he realized that that service he was offering on a plane is very similar, and is now changed direction, for the short term anyway. So have a think about those skills and those innate skills that you have and how they can be leveraged.
Yeah. How do you strike the right balance when you do the prioritization grid? How do you strike the balance with the cost implication in that?
Yeah, so this is that benefit is kind of rolled up into, net benefit, so that includes investment, cost, and then revenue as well. So as I said, that benefit needs to be broken down more, but at least it's a good start point. So for example, with the one we just looked at with reskilling those staff to offer a new product, in the food industry, what is the cost of reskilling? It might just be not much, or it might be quite a bit. And then what is the revenue opportunity by creating those new products? So those two factors need to be thought about a bit deeper. But what the prioritization does is it just gives you enough to start thinking and developing that idea.
Maybe one question from my side, because we've been using also a lot about the decision matrix. So prioritization matrix, but the decision matrix is more associated with specific criteria that you evaluate any decision with specific criteria. So what's the difference between both?
I think so. Decision making is maybe slightly more complex, but then there is your SMART matrix as well. There is your SWOT analysis. There are a whole host of matrices. So this is just one tool. I'm not saying this is the only tool. There are many tools. I think it's down to individuals to make a decision on which tool is a good tool for them. I'm not saying this is the only tool.
Yeah. Somebody would like to know how this grid, the prioritization grid, can be used in a school context.
Oh,
all our teachers in Mauritius are having their tuitions online because the schools have not resumed yet until the 1st of August. So all teachers are online now. So it's a new way of teaching. So can they use it in the school context?
Absolutely. I mean, in education, I'm a governor for a school as well. Normally in education, the teacher sort of is there, says what the plan is, and then all the students have to listen. A good way with this grid, whoever's in that sector, is ask the students, look, next week, this is what we have to do, but we have 2 hours free. What would you like to learn? What is really interesting to you? And let's put that on that grid. What is the highest benefit to you? And how difficult is it for, maybe we don't have the skill or we don't have the knowledge in that topic. How difficult is it to implement? And actually the kids doing that, it's great for them because then they feel they have choice. And then the teacher will go, yeah, we'll go with this. This is what you want to do. And suddenly you have this collaboration, this engagement. It can be very, very powerful. I don't know in Mauritius whether they have children committees, but we have something in the UK where the children have their own school committee where they also come up with ideas and go to the teachers with the ideas, right? This has been happening for a while. So this is a good way of then prioritizing those ideas.
Well, I think we've reached the end of today's session. So thank you very much, Ketan.